Alright, so this is going to be a bit of a technical video, but I'm going to try and keep it just to the bullet points so that you have just enough information to go do the research yourself and make your own decision on this particular situation. Of course, you can tell by the title we're going to be talking about 308 versus 7.62 by 51 or 7.62 NATO as it relates to the 1916 Spanish Mausers that are becoming very, very popular because there's so many of them coming into the country on the surplus market, and they're pretty cheap and they're cool, right? They're nice rifles. They really are, especially once they're cleaned up a little bit. All right, so a lot of people are buying these rifles and assuming you can just slap some 308 in there and just take to the range and have fun, because they're seeing a lot of people hop on YouTube and do the same thing. Some big YouTubers are getting a hold of these rifles and running a bunch of 308 through it and saying it's good to go. But here's something you need to understand. Actually, here's a lot of things you need to understand. First up, this rifle was not chambered to handle 308. It was chambered to handle 7.62 by 51. Now, you're not going to be able to see this on camera, but maybe go do a little bit of research yourself. And these two rounds, this side is 308, this side is 7.62 by 51. They are slightly different, especially right around here at the neck of the cartridge. Now, it is not enough of a difference to say that one will not chamber in a rifle that is chambered for the other round. If you have a 7.62 by 51, it will chamber in a 308, and if you have a 308, it will chamber in a 7.62 by 51 rifle. That's not the issue here. The issue comes down to pressure, and ultimately comes down to you just having the information to determine whether or not you want to take certain risks with your rifle. All right, so here's what we're talking about here. Average 308 is rated at about 61,000 PSI, give or take. Depends on the load. There's no standardized load. Some is packed hotter, some is packed lighter. Just depends on what type of ammo you're buying, but in general around 61,000 PSI for standard 308. Now, for a long time, 7.62 by 51, in this case 7.62 NATO, it was assumed was packed at about 52,000 PSI. So about almost 10,000 PSI less, so considerably lighter, but honestly it's not, you see, because that was going by the old CUP standards of determining pressure inside a chamber, or copper under pressure, and you can look that up. Just look up the old copper under pressure or CUP standards and how that relates to PSI and all that kind of stuff. But back in the day, 7.62 NATO was rated at 52,000 CUP. Well, as time went on and we moved from CUP to PSI to rate pressure for cartridges and chambers, it was just assumed that 52,000 CUP equaled 52,000 PSI, and in fact it does not. Okay, this would actually come closer to about 58,000 PSI. So 61,000 PSI, 58,000 PSI. So a little bit less, not a lot, but depending on the rifle, it could be enough to make a difference and mean firing this in your rifle could be damaging to your rifle. Maybe not necessarily dangerous to shoot, but certainly damaging. We're not talking about blowing out the side of your rifle, although I guess technically that could happen, but maybe you cause lug setback. Maybe you damage your rifle in some way to make it unshootable, just by shooting something that's more powerful in a chamber that wasn't designed to handle that pressure. So that's one issue. But then the other issue, and in my opinion, the real issue, is the fact that this rifle wasn't even designed and chambered to handle 7.62 by 51 NATO. It was designed and chambered to handle 7.62 cm. Now, what is 7.62 cm? All right, well, 7.62 cm is a round that's identical to this, except for the fact that it has less pressure. It wasn't loaded as hot, and the reason for that was pretty simple. At the time when Spain was trying to join NATO, they knew that they were going to have to use the NATO round. So they were going to get into 7.62 by 51, but they also knew that they hadn't gotten a hold of their FALs and all their other rifles that they were going to be shooting this round through yet. So they wanted to convert a bunch of their old school 1916 Mauser bolt actions into a 7.62 by 51 cartridge. But they also knew, well, they weren't sure that this rifle could handle the pressure of the 7.62 by 51 or 7.62 NATO cartridge. So what they did is they designed a cartridge that was exactly the same dimensionally, but just has less power in it, so they could be sure that they wouldn't have any problems shooting that round through this rifle until such time as their new rifles came in, and then they would use standard 7.62 NATO ammunition. Now, 762 sent me was actually rated at what would now be considered 52,000 PSI. So almost 10,000 PSI less than this, and about 6,000 PSI less than this. That's what this is actually chambered for. Not this, and not even this, but something completely different. Now, what do you do with all that information, considering you see people online shooting this stuff, the hottest stuff there is out of all three of these calibers we're talking about, through rifles like this? Well, honestly, you do your own research and do what you want, as I said before, but here's my advice, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm never going to shoot standard 308 through this rifle just because I don't want to take that chance. I will probably shoot 762 NATO through it, slightly less powered than that, slightly more powered than what it's rated for, but somewhere in the middle between the two. I'll take that chance. But mostly what I'm going to be shooting through this rifle is this right here, tool ammo, 308. And the reason is because this cheap steel-cased Russian stuff is down-powered. This stuff gets rated at probably somewhere around 42 to 43,000 PSI, well under what this is designed to handle. Now, that's bad if you're going hunting with the round because you're losing a lot of power, but for something like this that I'm not going to go hunting with, I'm just going to take to the range and just enjoy having it as an old mil-spec rifle, this is perfectly acceptable. So even though this isn't 7.62x51, either variation, it's so down-powered and it chambers just fine in this rifle. This cheap stuff that costs 9 something a box is mostly what I'm going to be shooting through this right here because pressure-wise, it makes the most sense. So that would be my advice to you, but again, do your own research, figure out what you want to do, and just do it and have fun with your rifle. But do understand that, you know, you can experience some problems depending on what type of ammo you decide to shoot. So that is pretty much it. Again, I tried to give you the bullet points, not too many technical specifications, but hopefully just enough to get my point across and get you to do your own research. I appreciate you guys watching. You got any questions or comments, leave that stuff down below and we will talk to you guys later. Thanks.